Free culture, as defined by Lawrence Lessig, involves the ability of the people to remix other people's work. It involves using the fruits of someone else's creativity in order to create something new and unique. It stems from and draws parallel to what is known as free software, which was developed back at MIT back in 1985 by researcher Richard Stallman. Stallman developed 4 promises when he created his version of free software: the freedom to run the program for any purpose, the freedom to study how the program works and adapt it to your needs, the freedom to redistribute copies so you can help your neighbor, and the freedom to improve the program and release your improvement to the public so that the whole community benefits. The foundation of this software was a free operating system known as GNU. In 1991, Finnish undergraduate student Linus Torvalds announced the beginnings of software development that would provide control for a computer's hard drive that uses GNU, which turned into the program Linux. By the end of the 1990s, GNU Linux had become a major free competitor to Microsoft Windows operating system. Free culture, in essence, became a response from the particular types of rigid social structure that discouraged this sort of freedom. The main source of this rigid, particular kind of social structure was copywriting. U.S. copyright law dates back to the writing of our Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 states that Congress has the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. What this boils down to is that Congress has the ability to promote progress, not the power to grant creative property rights, and that sets limits on the term of copyrights. In 1790, the first actual copyright was passed by Congress. It created a federal copyright and secured that copyright for 14 years. If the author was alive after that period of time was up, he or she could renew the copyright. If not, their work was passed off in the public domain. The reach of this copyright law was at first very narrow, affecting mainly the printing press, which back then would regulate charts, maps, and books. By 1831, however, the law had expanded to cover music, and by 1870 it covered paintings, statues, and what are known as derivative works, which are works based upon an earlier work, like a translation, for example. A major change came in 1909, however, when, according to Lessig, the exclusive right that copyright protected was defined to be not only the right to publish or republish, but the right to copy. At this time, this did not matter much, as the printing press was still the machine used to make copies of materials. But by the 1970s, when the copier became a printing press that the public had access to, it became unclear if the copyright laws could regulate its use. By 1976, creative work was automatically protected by copyright law, whether or not the work was registered. It did not have to carry the copyright symbol, nor did it have to be renewed. The government, in this instance, moved from regulating a minor sector of creative work to regulating all of it. Today, copyright laws are even more vague and restricting, and at the forefront of these laws is digital rights management, also known as DRM. What DRM does is that it allows copyright holders, and by extension software creators, to dictate, for instance, how many times you can read an ebook that you have purchased, or how many times you can move it from one machine to another. We see this today, especially with Apple's iTunes program, as a response to illegal music downloading. The response to illegal music downloading has been aggressive and outrageous. It was provoked by the internet because it enabled users to effectively spread the content to a large number of people. Peer-to-peer, or P2P, is one of the most popular ways in which this is done. Agencies such as the RIAA, which is the Recording Industry of America, and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, used the change in copyright law in 1909 as a reason to persecute offenders of illegal music downloading. The extension it added for musicians was that once a composer authorized a recording of his or her song, others are free to record it as long as they pay the original composer a fee set by law. Now, musicians obviously got around this up through the 1960s, as white musicians frequently re-recorded music written by black musicians and gave them no credit or paid them no fees for their services. But the bottom line is, however, that this was an exception to copyright law as a whole. This law effectively subsidizes the recording industry by giving the artists weaker rights than it otherwise gives creative authors of novels and poems. Dr. Bruce Druschel, assistant professor of communication at Miami University, offers his opinions on whether or not these copyright laws are applicable in this day and age to cover music piracy.
The problem with downloading And even though it seems like it is, we're so used to going to the internet and finding things that we don't have to pay for, including information. But the problem is that once somebody posts a digital copy to the internet, it is possible to make perfect copies of that pretty readily. And even though it seems like that is a victimless crime, violating somebody's copyrights, okay, well, so what? You know, I make a photocopy of a newspaper article. You know, is that really damaging the newspaper? Well, immaterial to this particular question. The fact of the matter is that there has been so much of that over time that has gone on that it actually materially has affected the profitability of the record industry. Why should people care about whether companies like Sony or Universal or Warner Brothers or EMI make a profit or not? Well, the answer is that maybe you shouldn't be concerned if the executives aren't making as much money or whatever, but that money that those companies make is what goes into then offering contracts and also prospecting for new acts in popular music. And so when that money isn't there, the money isn't available to pay for those artists. And what we've seen in the past few years is that there's been less innovation in popular music. Payments that go to artists are not as great. Record companies are much more operate on much tighter margins, which means they don't have the money to spend on acts that are anything other than a sure thing.
There's been a great response to these laws that infringe on the creative control of the public. Brazil, for instance, hosts the World Social Forum, in which hundreds of thousands of people descend upon Porto Alegre, participate in free software labs, attend lectures, and learn about video editing techniques, among much more. This is their way of promoting free culture. Everything is run on free software, and there are usually video jockeys that demonstrate their versions of remix cultures. Online, websites such as Negativland and the Copy and Fair Use at Stanford University provide users with information on copyright laws, current feeds of newly filed copyright lawsuits, examples of fair use and policies, along with actual examples of remix cultures such as concerts, posters, video, art, radio, books, etc.